Hi everyone, so this is the code that we worked with in the previous video, and the first thing I want to do here is I'm just going to take this pen class and I'm going to move it to a new file. Let's just call this my classes, and here I can just do from my classes import pen. So this is often a good practice to separate out our code in different modules. So in this video what I want to discuss is something called data encapsulation, and data encapsulation is one of the fundamental principles of object-oriented programming, and what it means is we are trying to protect data, we are trying to control what part of the code has access to what data. So we talked about how this inc variable right here, I don't want this inc variable to be accessed outside of the class, so I don't want someone to do something like print p1.inc, and that is why I made this examine refill method. But what happens is that this can actually be done. This print p1.inc is not won't give an error or anything, so this p1.inc can still be modified outside of the class here, the pen class. But what I want to do is I want to restrict the access to just within this class. I want to say that no one outside the class will have access to this. So the way to do that is actually pretty simple. I just add two underscores here. Actually before that, let me just show you that this thing works perfectly fine, doesn't give any error. So let's go to our pen class, and what I can do is just add two underscores here. So I add them everywhere, and now this inc class is accessible only within the pen class. If I go here and I add a double underscore here and I try running this, this gives me an error and it says pen instance has no attribute inc. So what we've done is we've restricted the access to this inc variable to inside this pen class only, and we use the word access modifier to tell what variable can be accessed from where. So earlier this inc variable was accessible to anyone. They just had to do p1.inc and they could access this inc variable. That means that the inc variable was public. We use the word public for a variable that's accessible from anywhere. And now that we have added these two underscores, it has become private. The word private means that it can only be accessed from within the class to which it belongs. So it's private to the class. And there's another access modifier called protected, but we'll be taking a look at that later. Before that, I also want to discuss that this inc variable, why this encapsulation sometimes becomes very important. So here, as you can see, I have the myclasses.pyc file, and sometimes what happens is when we are working as a team on a project, one person is supposed to write some classes, the other person writes some different classes, and a third person may be using these classes written by the first two. So when I write a class, I may not want to give my source code to my team member. In that case, I can give him the .pyc file, because this pyc file is not something that I can read. I won't understand any of it, so this is not human readable. So if I don't want someone to be able to read my code or modify my code, I can just give them my compiled Python file. And in that case, it becomes very important that I protect my data, because if I give public access to the inc variable, whoever is using my class may modify the inc variable maybe unintentionally, and I don't want him to be able to do that. So that's just one example where encapsulation becomes very important. And there's one thing in Python that it doesn't enforce encapsulation much. In a lot of other languages like Java or C++, there would be no way to access a private variable outside the class, for example this inc variable. But what I'm going to show you now is that I can actually access this inc variable. It's just not so straightforward to do it. So the way I do it is I add an underscore here. Let's just first get rid of all of it, and I write underscore, then the name of the class, which is pen, and then I give 2 underscores and inc, and this way I can actually access this inc variable as well. So if I run this, I get no error this time. So this is something that Python gives you the flexibility to do, but all of these underscores are warnings that you should be careful. These underscores are easy to spot, and whenever we see an underscore, we know that this is something that we might not we should not access, but we are still accessing. So basically the principle of Python is that the developer, the programmer, should be careful about what they're doing, but Python itself does not enforce anything. So that's an introduction to data encapsulation. When we see something called inheritance, we'll also look at the third access specifier. So the few videos that follow will be different concepts, fundamental concepts of object-oriented programming. So stay tuned for it.